and I start off. Okay. So
you can watch the stream.
Huh?
You can watch the stream to hear.
Oh, yeah. True. Okay, so it's the last day of the year, and we spent more than just this year, but definitely all of 2021, playing and running Giffyglyphs. So, yeah, Dom, you ran some Paradise Vale stuff. You ran an entire campaign, 53 sessions, level 1 all the way to level 12, Rime of the Frost Maiden. I did not make it that high in my game. It's a slower milestone game. But we're up to like what, 7, 6 or 7? Yeah, 7 sounds good. Yeah, that's right, because you just you finished your first island. So yeah, and one was in a more traditional D&D setting. One was in essentially another homebrew, which is Odyssey of the Dragon Lords. Because I guess if it's not first party WotC, it's technically homebrew. So double homebrew on that. I learned a lot this year, and I learned a lot about what I was missing in my D&D games and what I wasn't missing in my D&D games. After all, like one of those things where you add some seasoning back in and immediately realize you never actually missed that seasoning at all. You don't know why you added that back in. But to get a little bit of history, I've been playing D&D for 27, 8 years, something like that. And I've been DMing the whole time. I started as a self-taught DM. Found the book when I was looking for Magic the Gathering D20s to track my health, and then saw that there were other dice besides D20s, and then wanted to know what was going on. And the next thing I know, I was playing Dungeons and Dragons. We didn't have like ways to meet up with people, and you certainly didn't want to just, meet up with random older men that posted ads at the game shop. So, I just learned how to DM myself and started groups with people my age. Over time, I started with 2nd edition, advanced 2nd edition. I went back and checked out 1st edition. I played 2.5, which is called Skills and Powers. That was extremely fun. I switched over to 3.0 when it came out. I was gung-ho. I was all for it. A lot of my 2.0 friends refused to transition over to 3.0, so I had to find new people to play with. Military kid, moving around a lot, going to college, had to constantly find new groups. 3.0 was a lot of work. Maybe not as much work as 2.0, but it definitely was a lot of work. And they kind of realized that there were things that they could have done better, and so they released 3.5 D&D. But one of the things they also did is they had Pathfinder come about, because the way they set up their open rules license was that anybody could take the core rules and do anything they wanted with it. But what they didn't anticipate was somebody actually taking it and making an entirely new game and then selling it. And Pathfinder sort of did everything with 3.5 better than 3.5 was doing, and kind of just stole the game. So then Wizards of the Coast kind of fell apart. They had some scandals that they were dealing with, some leadership issues. Eventually, they got their shit back together-ish, and came under the control of Hasbro. Hasbro was like, we need something that's the anti-Pathfinder. We can't just release Pathfinder's game, even though it's our game, because that'll look bad. So we gotta break the mold. We gotta try something radical, something different, something totally new. What is it that people are hot for right now? And they're like, World of Warcraft. So they made a game that was basically as close to World of Warcraft as they could possibly get it, while still being Dungeons & Dragons. And honestly, what they ended up with was Final Fantasy Tactics, the board game, aka 4th edition D&D. And I thought it was great. I mean, I was excited for it. It was a breath of fresh air. It was new mechanics. There was a lot of cool tactical things. The combat was absolutely delicious. There were things that were bad. There was not a lot of focus on role-playing. There was not a lot of mechanics to support role-playing. And there was just a lot of backlash from the community that thought that they were going to get basically Pathfinder 2.0 from Wizards of the Coast, and that's just not what happened. So the game had big dreams in 4th edition. It was going to be online. They actually had plans for a virtual tabletop that was going to launch a year after 4th edition came out. There was just a lot of amazing things planned for it. There was online tools for character building, for monster building, for encounter building. It was fucking amazing. It was the stuff you have right now that everybody is in love with, but it was there the whole time for 4e. But ultimately, people didn't like it. People said it was too complicated. So they released a 4.5e, which tried to dumb down the 4e mechanics. And really, at that point, we were just reduced to like Hero Quest. It was almost watered down too much to be any kind of fun. So then they just sort of quietly let 4e die and went to work on trying to save Dungeons and Dragons, as it were. And ultimately, what they did is they asked people, like, what was your favorite parts of every edition? And then they mashed those all together without any real regard for balance or longevity of, like, balance within a campaign. They're just like, hey, yeah, we'll just have all the spellcasting of 2nd edition with the spellcasting of 3rd edition without any of the hang-ups and penalties of those earlier editions, and we'll grab the Warlock from 4th edition and throw them in there, and everybody loved having advantage on attack rolls in 4e, so we're definitely going to throw that into 5e, and they just sort of like took everything good, threw it into a pot, tried their best, and then luckily for them, Matt Mercer and his friends decided that 5th edition D&D was a lot easier for people to follow and understand than Pathfinder, so that's what Critical Role ended up switching over to, and then the rest is history. Everybody played 5e. I've been playing 5e since it was called D&D Next, and it was just a beta testing. And I have been in love with it, and I thought it was great. I thought it was a great return to the classics, the classic mechanics. But having play tested it, and then having run it since day one, having played as a player from level 1 to 20 twice, and having been in a number of campaigns, having been a DM of several campaigns, one of which did go from 1 to 20, I was getting kind of worn out on it. I mean, in 2020, I was running 5 games a week, playing in a game, and then running a monthly game. It was a lot of 5th edition D&D. I wasn't taking any breaks to play other systems. I didn't try out Pathfinder 2, even though I wanted to. I didn't go back and play some Starfinder, even though I thought it was pretty enjoyable. I was all in for D&D, and I got worn out. I got completely worn out on 5th edition D&D. By the end of 2020, towards the end of 2020, about September-ish, I was just like, I can't do this anymore. I can't have another party that relies on a character with sharpshooter for all of their DPS potential, that has 3 spellcasters that are all just going to spam Hypnotic Pattern and shut down every single fight they're in. Like, it just became like every campaign was just the same group, like abusing the same mechanics and bringing the same builds every single time. And it just got so stale for me. And a friend of mine, Lionsaid Gaming, he had been telling me about Giffyglyphs, and he's check out Giffyglyphs. Giffyglyphs so good. Check out Giffyglyphs. It's amazing. Finally, I was like, sure. So I checked out Giffyglyphs, and it just blew my mind because it was so fresh and it was so different. And it was bold enough to just say, you know what? I liked 4th edition, so I'm going to take all the things for 4th edition. I'm going to make them for 5th edition. And they did it in a way that I felt was extremely respectful for both versions of the game. And then that was the class compendium, was the first thing I read. And I got very excited about the changes for that because Moon Druid is fucking terrible. It's a terribly designed class. It's terrible. And then other terrible things that are underpowered, he found ways to kind of boost those up. And then he just found systems and mechanics that not only improved on what we had going in 5th edition, but they supported each other. A lot of homebrew people, they come up with a cool idea, they make it, they come up with another cool idea and they make it, but those two different ideas don't support each other. But everything that Giffy was coming up with was supporting everything else he had come up with. He was literally creating a system that the more things you use, the better it got. And I got really excited about it. And so I wanted to explore it and I also was learning Foundry at the time, and so I thought the best way to learn the system for Giffy and learn the systems for Foundry would be to create sort of a West Marches type experience that would be that would be a casual playground for running basically murder hobo-esque adventures. That's what I was going for with Paradise Vale when I brought it back, was to have this sort of sandbox to go in and learn Giffy mechanics and kind of do that kind of stuff. Now that is its own story in and of itself, of Paradise Vale and how it was trying to grow bigger than it was, and it was attracting many people with many different ideas about what they wanted from it. And I also had to learn the hard lesson that I was way too busy to manage a West Marches, while also managing 3 or 4 games and a server and content creation and a day job. But I enjoyed quite a bit of the Giffy stuff that we did. And that kind of brings us to here, right? Here and now, where Dom, you were following my content, you saw me doing Giffy stuff, you got excited about Giffy stuff, you decided to run all of Rime of the Frost Maiden with Darker Dungeons and Darker Dungeons and Monster Maker, not Class Compendium.
No.
And I decided to do the same thing, Darker Dungeons rules and Monster Maker for Odyssey. So that's where we're at, right? Like, yeah. And then we did. And now we're going to talk, now that we got all that history out of the way about how did we end up doing a year of Giffyglyphs, what is it, Giffyglyphs, what the hell's going on? Like, we got to talk about that, right? So let's start with some positives. What is the best possible thing that you got out of Giffyglyphs in the past year?
Popcorn Initiative.
Popcorn Initiative. That's a great one to talk about. So Popcorn Initiative or Active Initiative, when I read about it, I had a little trouble understanding it. And then I reread it and kind of like did a test, you know, in my head. And then immediately was like, we have to run a play test with this. We have to see what this is about. And it's a game changer. It's an absolute game changer. Because as a player, especially a VTT player, you know generally how long it is till your turn comes back around. And if you're in a very grindy fight, you're like, well, I took my turn, so I've got about 18 to 20 minutes. Guess I'll wander off and make a sandwich. Or I'll play Final Fantasy XIV in my other window. Or I'll call my girlfriend. Or I will work on this art project. Or I'll do literally anything else but pay attention to what's actually going on in the fight, because I know that I don't really have anything to do unless I'm like a spellcaster who could maybe cast Counterspell or something like that. I just have to make sure that one of my ear holes is listening for the DM to say my name, and then I'm good to go. Popcorn Initiative's like, no. Like, you could literally have your turn, and then 5 minutes later have your turn again. And then combined with Paragon monsters, you could be attacked, and then attacked again, and then your turn comes up again, and it's just, there's so much more going on, and there's so much more investment in your attention span to the fights, because you now have control of the fight. Like, you are not a Final Fantasy I character waiting for your turn to step forward, swing your axe, and then step back. You're actually in it. You're able to say, hey, if I don't do damage to this boss, I can actually maneuver into a position to grant a flanking bonus to this guy who has an attack that actually affects the vulnerabilities of this monster. So I'm going to move into position, I'm going to use the help action so that the next attack against him has advantage, and now he can come in and get flank and advantage and hopefully drop a nice big hit with damage this monster is vulnerable to. It's beautiful.
It allows more team play.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. The next evolution, honestly, is combo attacks. That's, to me, that's the next evolution. Now, that's something that 4E had, where, you know, you could combo, like, 2 characters acting at the same time, could basically have abilities that kind of trigger off of each other or boost each other. I remember in my Madness of Garber Abbey game, if they had active initiative, if they had Popcorn Initiative, oh my god, they would have had such a good time. Because we basically played with a form of active initiative because we allowed you to delay your initiative. So in order to set up for combos and stuff like that, we would allow people who got a higher initiative to deliberately lower their initiative count to be in sync with the rest of the party. So most fights really came down to everybody going at the speed of the slowest person so that they would have the opportunity to sort of combo their shit together. Because there was stuff like, I hit you, and now the next hit against you, you have vulnerability to that. And so somebody would hit somebody with that, drop their defenses. Another person would then buff the biggest attacker. Another person would buff the biggest attacker, and then the biggest attacker would hit that hit that character.
There's a Valda class that does something like that, where if you hit them with a certain thing, you can. I think it's a crafter. Like,
Yeah.
you make your weapon, and you can hit them with slashing, and then make them vulnerable to the next slashing
Yeah.
they get hit by.
I
But,
I love it. I love that.
I've heard a lot of people that if they don't use popcorn or active initiative, but they use regular initiative. But what they do is if you're next to each other in initiative, they just allow you to take both your turns at the same time.
See, and that's what we were doing in 4th edition to make sure that people could combo this attacks together. It's like we instinctively wanted active initiative or popcorn initiative. We just didn't know it was a thing, you know? And it's something that I feel that my games that don't have it, I do feel like to a certain extent they are less. They are getting less out of the game than if they if they were embracing that popcorn initiative. I understand why some of my groups didn't want it and why some of my groups would prefer to just have it, kind of a laid back Final Fantasy. I'm waiting for my turn. Oh, it's my turn. I take my turn. They want that more traditional gameplay. But for me, I really thought, yeah, I agree with you. I thought Popcorn Initiative was absolutely phenomenal and very, very important. And one of the best things that was brought. Another best thing that was brought is the sack tables. The succeed at a cost was such an incredible mechanic. I love it. I absolutely love it. Because I, as a DM, like, I don't want you to suck. You know what I'm saying? Like, a lot of people think that if you're a tough DM, you're anti-player. And that's not what it's about. For some players, hey Lex, for some players that is, or for some DMs, that is what it's about. It's about being the biggest person in the room. It's about control. It's about power tripping and all that kind of stuff. But for a good DM who runs a hard game, it is about pushing the players and the characters, putting them in situations where they have to make hard decisions. They have to make very tactical choices or live with the consequences of those actions. They have to hope against all hope that things do work out. It's very Matt Colville, right? Like the way I run my games. I'll be like, hey, challenge rating, meh. I'll be like, this sounds awesome. So this is the situation that they're in, and I hope to God that they don't die. Now that's great if you fudge dice rolls, right? Like, oh yeah, you're level 5 and I threw a pit fiend at you. It's okay. I fudge dice rolls. Everything's going to be fine. You're going to think you're in trouble, but you're not because of fudge dice rolls. But if you don't fudge dice rolls, if all your dice are out in the open, you got to be a lot more careful about the crazy shit you throw at your players because you're not going to be able to lie your way out of it with fudge dice rolls. And
what leads to that, I mean, what really helped from Giffys from that is the Monster Maker.
Yes, Monster Maker did help for keeping the math manageable.
So you can throw something crazy, and as long as I use the Monster Maker to figure out what that math was supposed to be like, it's fine. Like,
it's fine, especially if you have succeed at a cost in play. And that's what I mean about all these systems working together. Like, a lot of people are like, oh, Giffy Monsters is the best stuff, and it's all you need is Giffy Monsters. But it's like, sure, but it's so much better when you start layering in all this other stuff.
Honestly, I don't think Giffy Monsters work that well without succeed at a cost, because some of those monsters have such like high AC, such high saves, and then so much HP that if you're missing all the time, it just they don't last too long. Like, it's not gonna be fun anymore.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, and that's where I was going initially. Is I don't want your characters to suck. Like, it breaks my heart to see a player wait 15, 20 minutes for their turn to come up and they miss. You know what I'm saying? Or a really shitty thing is going to happen to them if they don't make the save and they fail by 1. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
that's the worst. That's the worst. Like, oh, well, I guess you turned to stone. Have fun hanging out with everyone tonight and not playing D&D. And it's like, people argue like, oh, well, you don't have to send monsters that turn people to stone and you don't have to do this. It's like, well, at that point, is every monster just going to be the same vanilla ice cream like monster if we start taking away all these deadly abilities and stuff? Like, it's not going to feel as exciting. It's exciting to fail by 1 and then be like, no, I didn't fail. And then accept whatever consequence comes with that, but you're still in it. You're still in the game. I think that it's just a fantastic mechanic. And this past Monday, they had a pretty tough. They had some pretty tough encounter with. I'll just put it out there with the Kraken, and succeeded to cost was like. It would have saved them so much trouble because they were missing things by 1, 2, or 3 over and over and over again. Missing attacks, missing saves by 1, 2, or 3. And just being able to succeed would have changed everything for them. And that's why I'm making Succeed at Cost a mandatory feature for all my games. It's an opt-in, obviously. No one's ever expected to do it. But it's there. Gandian, are the tables for SAC available anywhere? On our Discord, whenever we update them, we post the Foundry files for the stuff. Also, right now, I believe the tables themselves are on the Discord because I had them open for peer review. That'd be the version. What are we at? 4? Version 3?
Yeah, 4. No, it'll be 4 now.
Yeah, and I like the version 4 ones quite a bit. I'm very excited for the version 4 ones because I think
really
the
like that,
lucky unlucky mechanic.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I really like that.
Yeah. That actually borrows from Hackmaster version 4, which has a lucky and an unlucky status, essentially. It's called honorable and dishonorable, where you earn like a budget of points that basically earned through role playing and stuff like that.
In the what was the new Ravenloft book, they had the thing about stress.
Yeah.
Like if you have 1 point of stress, that's a -1 on everything. And then pretty much you just have like a second wind or like a feeling good or lucky, I guess, which we call it lucky, and it's the opposite of that. So I think it works. There's a lot of people who came up with different names for it, but I think because that idea has been used in different ways, I think it might be pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to trying it out.
So I'm definitely excited for that. So far we've got Succeed at Cost was amazing, and Popcorn Initiative was amazing. So bouncing the ball back to you, what was another awesome thing about Giffy? Like something that you don't want to let go of, that you want to hold on to, that you couldn't imagine playing D&D without it, if possible.
Okay, I think I was gonna say the Monster Maker, but the Monster Maker for bosses specifically. Right? Like Paragon monsters and stuff like that for primarily for like, bosses and end encounters and stuff like that with like phases and all that stuff. Because that whole Monster Maker and like the math and like allowing the freedom to just do whatever I want, but be able to trust the math to be able to come together and give you a good balanced, albeit you can push it a little bit further to make it a little bit more challenging fight.
And that, again, the pushing is also just paying attention to your group. Like, does your group have a shitload of magical items? Does your group have a shitload of healers? Is your group just nothing but moon druids? Yeah, like, that's going to change what your group can handle versus what your group can't handle. Is your group 3 rogue investigators? Might need to, tone it down a little bit. For
the fight you guys had in Rhyme, the final fight, the level of that boss was 15.
Right, and we were only 12 going into it. Yeah.
So, and it was a 15 solo, and you had 2 elite. You were fighting with 2 elites at some point. So, and those 2 elites, I think, were 10.
Right, which is just further proof that no CR system, no balance system, really stands up to actual gameplay.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, unless you are not handing out magical items, not handing out boons, not allowing homebrew classes and homebrew subclasses and all this other kind of stuff, you can't balance against that because these are unknown quantities. Like, they couldn't build a perfect D&D system that scaled with every group because every group is completely different. And the theme of every campaign is completely different, and the needs of every campaign are completely different. So yeah, that was a great move on your part to say, hey, these guys are hitting way above their level. I could probably get away with doing this. Conversely, in Mythic Odyssey, I have to scale shit back for you guys. I don't know if it's because you guys are just terrible dice rollers. I think that's a big part of it. You guys are pretty terrible dice rollers. But yeah, I've had to definitely scale things back for you guys, as opposed to Prime, where there's no limits for those guys. It's full on Dragon Ball Z with those guys. Yeah. So,
it's one reason why we try and talk our way out of everything.
Oh, in chat, they say, I noticed y'all dropped armor repair system pretty early on for Rhyme and for Mythic. Yes. Okay, so we've talked about things that we love, which is boss monsters, succeeding at a cost, and Popcorn Initiative. The number one thing that I got tired of real fast was equipment durability.
No,
and, yeah.
I don't think I don't think anyone finds equipment durability fun, but they the idea.
David does.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if he finds it fun. I think he finds the idea of of having that realism fun, not so much having the actual art. Like maybe if even if you did say we did armor durability, but there was no mechanic by it. You're just like, oh, your armor's hurt, and then when you went to town, we fixed it. Narratively, that was all it was. I think people will be fine with that, but having this mechanic where we have to track it, I was like, man, this is
yeah. My final place that I settled on was this. In the world, there are rust monsters.
Yeah.
There are corrosive oozes. There are big boys that hit you really hard and smash your stuff. Cool. That breaks your shit. But I'm past all that. I've played so many different tabletop games, and looking back, I can tell you wholeheartedly, I hated all the ones that involved armor tracking and durability. Hackmaster, least favorite part of Hackmaster. When I ran my homebrew game Iron Hack, which was basically Hackmaster smashed together with Eberron, I hated it. We got over that shit real quick. Durability tracking, it was a whole lot of bullshit.
At one point, I even tried to see if there's maybe there's a simpler way to do this, and I looked up, and there was somebody who was like, oh, what if we just as you guys are adventuring every day, every combat or like that, there's just a tax on gold, and then when you get back to town, long rest, you take that gold.
But at the end of the day, why tax it? Just give them less gold.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Just give them less gold. The end,
or the point that I'm gonna have to give them more gold so that this is not a problem.
Right, and also at a certain point in any campaign, you just cross a threshold where you just have too much money.
Yeah,
and that's fine. One of the things I hate the most about Critical Role is that Matt Mercer actually wastes time looking up how much fucking food costs, bro. No one cares. No one cares how much they spent on food. They literally are drowning in money by level 5. No one cares that it was 17 silver for breakfast. There's no immersion there. The D&D economy is fucking trash anyways. I got over that real quick. I couldn't believe the amount of players that were kind of salty that we were phasing it out so quick. Because I was like, why? And then I even thought to myself, oh, well, equipment durability is okay in video games, because in video games, it's automatically tracked for you. And then I finally played Breath of the Wild. And I was like, well, this is hot garbage. What an amazing video game. And it's ruined. It's ruined by this stupid mechanic. I don't want to block with my shield because they'll break it. okay, cool. I get it. That's realistic. The motherfucker's 20 feet tall. He's got a club the size of a tree. He hits my little wooden shield. It's gonna break. Sure, I get it. Immersion. No, that's not fun. That's stupid. You know why it's stupid? Because you still let me carry around 14 shields. So how is that realistic? I'm a little elf boy. How am I carrying around 14 shields and 18 giant clubs? And then what's the point? Like, why have them break in the first place? And then I'm like,
have them last as long as those 14 shields.
yeah, like what the fuck was the point? Like, what was the point? Like, what were you trying to prove? You know what I'm saying? Like, well, I don't get it. I don't get it. And then to even have like magical items like wear out, like, okay, sure, like Elder Scrolls does that, and then you gotta recharge them with like soul gems and all this kind. Nobody wants to do that. That shit's dumb. Like, I don't know. Like, yeah. So equipment durability, I'm over that. I am over that. I honestly think that for some people, I was actually messaged once because in somebody messaged me and they were like, "Hey, I'm thinking about applying for one of your games. I need to know, do you use encumbrance rules?" And I was like, well, I mean, I say that we use encumbrance rules, but honestly, you know, I only check if you're carrying like a really heavy thing. And like, then I'm like, hey, how are you carrying that? You only have a 6 strength. Like, how are you carrying that? And they're like, oh, you do encumbrance rules? I'm never going to join your game. And I was like, okay. And then they're like, any DM that does encumbrance rules, that's like a number crunching DM. I never want to be in a game with that DM. Like, I want a DM that focuses on fun. And I was like, okay. But like, I think in a way, that's what equipment damage has become for me. Like, if I was reading like a new tabletop system and they were proudly telling me about their equipment durability system, I would just close the book. I'd be like, and done. So,
I think they have something like that in a5e.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. Yeah.
That's not being used. Okay.
A5E, I'm realizing there's some good modularity there. I'm definitely gonna approach it. I'm approaching it the same way I'm approaching Giffy. I'm gonna take what I like and I'm gonna leave the rest behind. But like equipment durability, oof. And we could go on and on about equipment durability forever, but my takeaway is I'm done with that shit. Yeah.
Same here.
Yeah.
And like kind of with that, equipment durability went really fast, and I think what went after that was either spell burnout, and injuries.
Yeah. So let's talk about yeah. Here's my problem with injuries. He had a table, and you could have different parts of your body injured, but they didn't matter. It didn't matter what part of your body was injured.
You just got exhaustion.
Yeah, you just got exhaustion. So like flavor-wise, like I hurt my foot, I hurt my butt, and everybody laughs because your butt got hurt. You know, that's funny because your butt got hurt. But like, it didn't do anything. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And then I definitely liked that being dropped to 0 gave you exhaustion. I thought that was it made combat scary. I liked that death saves didn't reset. Oof. God, that was terrifying. It
makes getting down
people who watched Rhyme, I don't think they understood or remembered most of the time that our death saves did not reset. Because they would I mean, if you look at it, I was the only person that died in the whole campaign, and I used a fate point to stay in the game. But like, that's it. You know what I'm saying? Like, so you could look at it and be like, oh, it wasn't that tough. Everybody lived through it. You know, he had these tough bosses, but like, they always managed to get through in the end. But like, they have no idea, like, that we were going on, a lot of those fights were on fumes. Like, we had no spells. Like, all of our spells had been wasted on succeeding at a cost for other things, and then losing the spell slots as a consequence of succeeding. And you guys
had a lot of encounters between long rests.
Yeah, exactly.
Especially that last chapter, you guys pushed.
Oh yeah, we were doing like some of those fights on nothing. That's why I'm gonna put it out there. That's why I tried to cheese the Demi-Lich, because I knew that we didn't have anything. You know, like we were all looking for a clever way to defeat the Demi-Lich just because we had nothing, and then we were all terrified of dropping because like
That
those failed death saves. Xathu finished the campaign with 2 failed death saves and
mhm,
kept dropping. And
yep.
like, if we hadn't immediately gotten them back up, that could have been it, you know? So
Hmm.
like, yeah, I thought
Those
that was a great,
howls,
yeah.
those howls are very very scary in like a Giffyglyph setting where it just drops you to zero like that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So like, I like that a lot. I think it's not something that I could put into every game though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would only put those into games that wanted it to be challenging. Just like Meat Grinder. Like, I always do
Yeah.
Meat Grinder for extra life, but
Hmm.
most people don't want a death saving throw to be a DC 15. They don't want that shit. You introduce that, you're going to end up with at least one paladin in the party so that they have that paladin aura to help them with death saves. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. Um, yeah. So the other thing that somebody brought up in chat was all right, we dropped armor and durability, and then let's see if they mentioned anything else that we dropped. Oh, they asked about tracking. Not tracking, crafting. So,
Okay.
yeah,
I,
I don't
I,
know.
I'll,
Nobody's made a good crafting system yet. I don't think, but you take it away, yeah, because you dealt with it
so
more than I did.
yeah. So
Yeah.
so in rhyme, I pretty much decided to take into account that whole gem system because that's how Giffyglyphs had it at the beginning before he started redoing it. It was just based off of gems.
Yeah.
You have a gem with a certain thing, certain rarity, um, and like there was so many gems like in rhyme, like a lot of the loot was gems already instead of gold because of the whole setting, anyways. So
Hmm.
that kind of helped me with it. So like whenever they said they had, this treasure is like they find this gem worth this much gold, I'll be like, okay, that much gold equals this much in Giffy Glyph. So okay, that's a gem, and I'll just roll to see what type of gem it is that you guys can use. And since he already had that chart with all those different things you can do with gems, I was like, okay, yeah, go for it. Um, Now, a lot of the crafting you guys did was just socketing gems into weapons and armor, and then putting making potions, and then other than that was and Hammonds. I hardly used Hammonds actually. A lot of it was almost all ands and
Hmm.
then Giffy. Um, Honestly, with crafting, I'm always this I'm always gonna go with this part of crafting is that I feel like crafting it has to be something unique and special. Otherwise, you might as well just give them the gold so they can buy it.
Right. Yeah.
Because regardless whether like either way, you're giving them a resource, and then they're gonna go someplace, and the narrative you can narrate it however you want it, and then they get an item,
Hmm.
whether that's gold or them putting it together with their hands and maybe rolling a dice. I mean, that roll of the dice could be trying to persuade the merchant, or that roll of
Right.
dice could
Right.
be crafting. So
Yeah.
unless it's something like unique where like I want to have this because this is what my character wants, and then
Mhm.
like okay, as a DM, I'm like okay, this is the one thing you want in your character. I'll put this inside the campaign, and I'll try and seed it into specific places. You find it as you go along, and maybe at the end of the day, maybe like the last chapter, you'll have your thing.
Mhm. Yeah, like my takeaway from crafting was simply it's a lot. It's a lot to
Yeah,
track.
yeah.
I mean, in the beginning, I was blown away. I was like, this dude took every Foundry monster in his campaign and he put the drops as inventory for that monster so that when we killed that monster, we harvested it, he could just drag it right off of them onto our sheet. It's fucking amazing. I was like, I don't think I would ever have time for that prepping for 3 different campaigns. I don't think I would have time to do that, honestly.
I would have one campaign. So.
Right? Yeah, yeah. I was just like, that's incredible. Like so much of what you did for your campaign, I was crazy jealous of like the amount of time and effort and like love that you put into your prep for your campaign. I was just like, I can't do that. Like,
I'll let you know right
yeah,
now. Almost every one of your prep streams that I was watching for all the other campaigns that I was doing, I was
right.
prepping for Rhyme at the same time. So I prepped like you know the
Yeah.
same number of times for you, but for one campaign while you were doing it for like
Oh
four.
no, and I would tell people, I'd be like, oh man, I would just love to be able to give one campaign the amount of love that I give all my campaigns right now. Like that would be just amazing to be able to give a campaign that much attention and that much love. Would just be so satisfying. And one of those things I realized though is like I can't support that complex of a crafting system Definitely can't manage it for a West Marches game.
Mm-hmm.
That's like a full-time job for like a person would
Yeah.
be managing the crafting economy of a West Marches game. That's just not going to happen. And then my takeaway with crafting was this, that each campaign just going to handle crafting differently based on the campaign.
Yeah.
So are you playing in a high magic setting, but nobody in the group is interested in crafting? Magic item stores everywhere, like we did in Skull and Shackles. Like I did in Saltmarsh Games, because Forgotten Realms. Are you interested in crafting because you like the idea of getting stuff from monsters and not just having their bodies lay there on the ground and decompose? Like, okay, cool. We could kind of like have choice monsters drop interesting bits, and then, that's where Anne and Hammond come in. Hammond for boss monsters, Anne for everything else is kind of how I like to run it. But if, like, for example, in Mythic, Julian wants to be an artificer now that artificer is unbanned, and I kind of feel like that'd be cool to just basically roleplay that Julian is the mechanic to create these items. So you guys are feeding items into Julian, and then Julian is pooping them back out as items. So now Julian gets to feel like he is an artificer and he's making items for his companions, but at the end of the day, he's just the face of the crafting system that we decided to go with. The end, Like, I could see like being in a game and having crafting be a central part of the game, but I feel like it's something that everybody would need to be on board for, and 100% the DM needs to understand how much extra work goes into a campaign that involves crafting. We had at least 2 sessions out of the 53 sessions in Rime that was, each of those sessions was just 4 hours of crafting.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I mean, is it fun? I mean, we had fun. It was fun to make our own equipment and stuff like that, but like, I mean, those are also 8 hours that could have just been spent playing Dungeons and Dragons, like going into dungeons, smashing monsters, that kind of stuff. I had fun, collected the ingredients to make Hellebor's armor. I felt good about the armor. It wasn't just armor that I found; it was armor that I made. Yeah. So like there were things like that definitely added to it. But I would be hard pressed to run a game that 100% was focused on crafting, unless it was like a Monster Hunter game, like the one that you ran as a mini series. Even then, I would probably take the same approach you did of dumbing it down and simplifying it, because much like the durability thing, it's just more than I feel like tracking. Yeah. And even as a player, I don't know if I'd really want to play in a game where I have to track that many things, because I have so much other stuff I have to keep track of IRL. I don't want to have to like keep track of all that shit. That's why I don't play a wizard.
Yeah. If I were to dumb it down to the small, the dumb as it could be, I would probably just make it a different currency. Like every monster drops crafting material,
crafting points. Yeah.
And then you can, like, if you have like maybe it's not even like points or anything. Maybe it's like this monster's I don't know if we're doing Giffy or something like that. Maybe minions don't drop anything, regulars don't drop anything, elites drop this thing, and you can turn this thing into this tier of item. Whatever item you want to turn it into, as long as you have this material, and you're taking a long rest, you can turn it into whatever you want. I don't know. Maybe something like that'll be the you just have a list of the items you can give people to craft. Don't worry about materials or recipes or anything like that. Like, just, you need this tier item, and you can craft this tier magic item. You need this tier material that this tier monster drops. You get this tier magic item, and that's it. If I were to dumb it down to that point, but then at that point, like, I might as well just say, here's enough gold for you now to go to this store to buy it.
Yeah, now Odyssey of the Dragon Lords, their built-in crafting system it's pretty broken, but it's also kind of what you're saying, but it's like a good compromise. It's like, to make this item, you need 1, 2, or 3 monster drops, and then it just tells you these are the monster drops you need. And so you just go get those 3 monster drops, you send them off to the magical forge, and the magical forge poops out the item that you wanted.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, that seems like a pretty good compromise for crafting. So, all right. Also, let's circle back around to spell spells and
Burnout.
burnouts. All right, so I played a wizard in Paradise Vale because I wanted to show solidarity for the spellcasters. We all completely misinterpreted how it worked, and I was succeeding at cost for fucking cantrips. My dude was killing himself. He was in a constant state of near death
It was
from
kind of
succeeding at cost. It was kind of awesome. It was kind of awesome, honestly.
Yeah, because when it did work out, like it was pretty good, and when it did mess up, and you still made it work, it was still pretty good.
And honestly, don't feel bad for me because I also misinterpreted how the class compendium wizard recovery worked, and I basically gave myself like the best spell recovery you could have. So I was earning all of my licks for sure because I had way more spell slots than I was supposed to. So it was okay that every time I cast spells, my characters exploded blood from like every orifice. I kind of liked it in a setting where magic is dangerous and you need to watch out for magic, blah blah blah. Like that's kind of cool. Yeah, if you're trying to get that flavor, right, and everybody's on board for it, sure. But it did start to get very tiring when combined with the long rest mechanic. I think that was just too many slaps to the face for spellcasters. Because like, okay, I get it. You want to punish magic users because they're way stronger than non-magic users in 5th edition. Okay, cool. They have access to the 2nd and 3rd edition spellcasting system without any of the penalties or consequences of those systems. We're trying to correct that. I just feel like Giffy overcorrected it. I feel like there were too many things that were slapping spellcasters in the face. And when you had all of those mechanics in play, it was too much. It was just too much. Yeah. So like if you wanted to use spell feedback or whatever, burnout. If you wanted to use spell burnout, I would say yeah, spell burnout can work, but only if you're not using the whole like you can only long rest in a sanctuary. Like that's kind of my take on it. If you're already punishing them with limited spell slots by restricting like where they can long rest and how they can get back spell slots, I feel like burnout's just so much more on top of everything else that they're already dealing with. Is my take on it. I don't know. I feel like for the most part because we didn't use it at all in Rhyme. In Mythic, I thought it did lead to some pretty interesting exchanges. It did lead to some interesting situations. I liked story-wise that Julian was essentially not good at magic, right? Like, because he burned out more than everybody else.
Yeah.
And I think that it created a nice narrative that he was just not good at magic because he had so much power in his blood and this and the other thing, and he couldn't manage it or whatever. So I thought that was kind of cool that there was a mechanic that was kind of reflecting that. But I don't feel like he especially was getting anything out of it because unlike Sibo, who's a warlock and getting back his spells on a short rest, right? Or was was the warlock still getting the back on a short rest? I think the warlock still gets the back on a short rest.
Yeah, short rest.
Yeah. Like he's a sorcerer. Sorcerer, kind of the worst spellcaster in 5e, and now he's getting double dicked. You know, he's getting screwed over with the burnout. He's getting screwed over by having to wait forever to get his stuff back. So I feel like he got hit hard, and I think to a certain extent it was taking a lot of the joy out of the game for him. And that's why I don't want to keep a mechanic that it is obviously not fun, right?
Yeah.
It's not fun. So we already had consequences. We already had like nasty critical hits.
So, yes.
Yeah. So like
for me, I think because a lot of times whenever you do like spellcasting, because you're spending a slot and you're using like attack, when that attack misses, it's horrible, right?
Yeah.
And then but because we have succeed at a cost, you can, succeed at a cost, make it hit, take a consequence for it, and then that could be the narrative. You're not able to really control magic because you're able to hit, but you had to force yourself to do it, and you didn't. You had a consequence for it.
Yeah, it's an
Whereas,
easy way to explain the cost of a succeed at a cost. Like oh,
yeah,
magic's dangerous. Like, yeah,
yeah, and
yeah,
but that I think that works a little bit better than like every single time I cast the I don't know mage armor,
yeah,
and I just I you explode for it because of it, just because you
yeah.
rolled really bad. And then the worst part is that as you get like it snowballs too, because every time you burn out, your dice gets smaller,
Mm-hmm.
and then you just start burning out more and more, and then eventually you run out of spell slots.
And I understand
But
that in Darker Dungeons, that's the product he's trying to sell.
yeah,
Is he is basically trying to create a Darkest Dungeons, right? That's why it's called Darker
hmm
Dungeons. It's inspired by
yeah,
Darkest Dungeons. Like he wants
yeah,
to create a system where you
you
are wearing yourself the fuck out being an adventurer.
yeah,
Like you are always in danger of losing all your resources. Cool, but for a long-term campaign that's character centric, it's just not very fun. It just wasn't a
see
very fun
the
mechanic.
thing with Darker Dungeons and the game is that you would go out on your expedition to the dungeon and then come back to town
Yeah.
and rest
Right,
and
and
recover and do all
narratively, the Rhyme crew had shit they had to do. Do you know what I'm
yeah
saying? And like
yeah
the literal name of the mythic game is Mythic Odysseys of the Dragon Lords. Y'all motherfuckers are traveling all the time.
yeah
Like, yeah, like we don't have sanctuaries unless we count the ship as a
hmm
sanctuary, which we're going to end up having to do, right? So
yeah
we're going to treat the ship as a sanctuary. But like it was built. Darker Dungeons was built around a very traditional, old school style of play.
yeah
Find dungeon, delve dungeon, come home, regroup, go back to dungeon, delve deeper, go back
hmm
to town, and like that's why I thought it was a perfect fit for a West Marches game. That's why
yeah.
I thought it'd be a perfect fit for a West Marches game.
And actually, it was really good because we
Yeah,
went on expeditions, came back.
yeah,
I mean, the
yeah.
problem is that we kind of try to shoot everything into one shots, and we
Yeah. We
that's a
added.
whole other,
Yeah.
that's a whole other story.
We could have a whole other thing about why Paradise failed and
Yeah,
why it basically. Well, it was feature bloat. It was content and feature bloat. We kept trying to
yeah,
add more and more and more to it, but we didn't in any way have the infrastructure to support all these different systems and mechanics that we were all hoping to add.
yeah,
There's just a lot. There's just a
yeah,
lot.
yeah.
Yeah. But all right. So with Giffy stuff, we've talked about a number of things that we didn't like about the system. We talked about the things that we did like about the system. You said that Monster Maker, you like it the most for bosses.
Yeah.
Why did you find yourself not enjoying it for every monster?
I mean, it's good for every monster. It's just the amount of work you have to do to constantly remake
Yep.
monsters over and over and over, and a lot of it, like maybe you'll get it for like maybe like an elite monster.
Right.
You'll get a good use out of that putting the work in to remake it. And
Mm.
then but some other monsters like if I like I remade I don't know those when you guys were inside the dwarf fortress and I remade all
Dwegar?
those Dwegar and all
Yeah.
those Quasits and all that. Like I didn't like they lasted too long. I didn't like honestly I did not need to remake them
The
for
tr-
what you guys
the
were doing.
tro- the Trog tunnels in the Mithril
Mhm.
Mines. Oh my god. Like defender monsters are no fucking joke.
And
Like
guess what? All those Dwargar were defenders too.
yeah, I was picking
They're
up
all
on
guard.
that. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
picking up on that. I was like, "Oh my god." And I got to the point where I was telling you guys like these are defenders. Like you're going to need a better way to deal with them than damage cuz you guys don't have the DPS to handle defender monsters. And that's why you guys started doing smarter shit, like throwing them off of ledges and tying them
Yeah.
up and knocking them out. And
Yeah.
and I think that actually fueled a more interesting combat and a more interesting play style. But I agree with you. It's too much work to reskin an entire campaign as Giffy monsters. There is no good community support for a Giffy monster manual, despite us trying to make one ourselves.
Yeah.
And then we're still crippled by the integration to Foundry itself. I mean, even Giffy himself tried to program a monster maker for Foundry. By the time he finished the fucking monster maker, it was out of date.
Now it works for 8. If you're in 8, it still works. But the
Yeah.
problem with his monster maker is that It is not like you don't make abilities. It's just the like you hit the save button and it's always going to be the save,
Right.
whether instead of you hitting an ability, description goes up, you can read it and it has the save and the damage
Mm-hmm.
for it. Like you hit the save button, narrate what the monster's doing, you hit the damage button, narrate what the monster's did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So
And like, yeah, we have TetraCube import or whatever, and
I mean
like,
it's a lot of work.
yeah, it's a lot of work. Like, I love the Paragon bosses, and
Yeah.
Skull and Shackles by the end of the campaign, they knew Paragon bosses meant business, versus legendary bosses. And in Prime, in Odyssey Prime, they know that there's two types of bosses. You could run into a legendary boss, or you could run into a Paragon boss. And they don't want to deal with the Paragon boss, because the Paragon boss has that action economy like you can't believe. Like, it's crazy.
And I like that. I like the balance action economy between for a solo monster.
Oh yeah.
It
Like,
sucks when
I was already doing that shit with legendary actions, and I didn't even realize it, because I was giving every monster that had legendary actions could take a dash action with a legendary. Period. Like, every monster could use a legendary action to make an attack. Period. Like, I was already doing that with my legendary monsters, so when I saw the Monster Maker, I was like, oh yeah, this is like the natural progression of
legendary action.
yeah, of legendary actions. So that was huge.
And it also makes it a lot easier because instead of having a normal monster where it has what it could do and it has what it can only do with legendary actions, I rather just have a legendary action, Paragon action, is just something you can do in between your turn. Whatever you can do it just in between a turn.
And I love our adaptation of minor actions, and multi-attack equals a monster could do any combination of X minor actions, because you want to talk about scaring the shit out of players as far as action economy goes. Nothing tells you this monster attacks quickly like that monster getting to make 4 attacks with every Paragon action.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. The first monster Skull and Shackles encountered, I did like the Fire Ganon.
Oh yeah, I remember.
They were so mad. Oh, they were so fucking mad. They were like, "Are you kidding me?" And I'm like, "No, he's just really fast." They're like, "Okay." Yeah, because he was just like a blender.
He just teleports and then shoots out like 5 attacks and then...
Yeah, and they took that fight super seriously. They were like, "Oh shit, like we can't mess around with this fight." Yeah, so the Giffy Monster Maker is absolutely amazing. Popcorn Initiative / Active Initiative, absolutely amazing. Succeeded Cost, absolutely amazing. If that's the only 3 things I ever take with me from Giffyglyphs, it was worth it.
Also, I don't think Paragon would really work without active Initiative.
I use it. I use it in Prime and I use it in Skull and Shackles. It just means that after every player's turn, these motherfuckers are doing stuff.
I mean, yeah, but like the like idea of like, because like, well I guess
it's harder.
The GM has to run differently for that.
Oh yeah,
because like with Paragons and active initiative, like players can take turns and certain people can move and stuff like that. Whereas somebody in regular, they're gonna be standing still in a specific area. Like,
and they're stuck there the whole time, right? Yeah. Well, what I do is when I run Paragon monsters in a non-Giffy game and we use regular initiative, I just look at their abilities and I'm like, this would be too strong if they could access it with Paragons. So there's certain things that they can't do with their Paragons.
Okay.
Period. Right? Okay. Like their breath weapons, for example. Some of the monsters, their breath weapons are just so strong that I'll be like, you can't access this with your Paragon actions. Or if they do access an ability, then they can't access it again until like they hit a threshold or whatever. So until they drop to like 66% of their health or whatever.
Round.
Or once per phase even.
Okay.
Yeah, so you do have to definitely take into account that the players don't have control over the initiative. They don't have control over the battlefield like they do with active initiative. And so you do have to change the way you play. And you also have to remember the intention of a Paragon monster is not to give you a monster that you can finally win Dungeons and Dragons with. Yeah. The idea is that the monster can do so much cool shit so that the fight is interesting. Yeah. Because we've all been there where like the players just cheese like certain spell combos and that's the boss fight. And it's like, okay, like what a cool story, I guess. Like, let me tell you the story about how we cheesed this boss fight. Okay, like,
Like putting somebody
well,
in
it's like
a
it's like
bag of
a.
holding.
Oh, it's like Final Fantasy. If I was like, yeah, I beat that super hard optional boss. I used the Phoenix down on him because he was undead, and then I hit him. It's like, oh, is that what you did? It's like,
Mhm.
yeah, that's what I did. It's like, cool. Thanks. That was a great story. And then you got somebody who actually fought the boss, and they're telling you about all these narrow escapes and these like incredible saves and these
Yeah.
horrifying attacks that they had to deal with. Yeah, X Zone Vanish Cheese from Final Fantasy VI, for example. Like, just because you can cheat doesn't mean you should cheat. Like this bullshit in 5th edition D&D. I force cage fireball you to death, or I force cage microwave you to death with that one Xanathar spell that microwaves you. Or I polymorph you into a monster with less than 100 hit points, and then I finger of death you or whatever, or power word kill you. It's like, that's not cool. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not
Mhm.
cool.
Yeah.
Skull and Shackles, I let him drop a whale on a fucking house. But they didn't drop whales on houses for the rest of the campaign. Do you know what I'm saying?
Didn't they do it for the? Oh no, that was Tidal Wave.
Yeah, it was a title. I was totally different.
Yeah.
But yeah, and also I was like, cool. Well, you're still gonna fight the fucking boss. So
Mhm.
like, yeah, they blew up his whole house and all that jazz. But then they still had to fight him. I still
Yeah.
had him just be at full health or whatever, because like I don't know, drank a healing potion or some shit. Like, yeah, like certain times like cheese can be fun and cool and tell a cool story, but like if your whole campaign is just abusing like cheese mechanics, like that's not fun. And that's what I think Paragon system helps with. It
Yeah.
helps mitigate that, you know?
And another thing too is the trade off for that is that they got rid of legendary resistance.
Right, which I love. I brought back,
I saw.
actually, I brought back Paragon resistance because I,
But I mean,
yeah.
that's much better than legendary resistance because I
Oh,
think
yeah.
I'm that's one of my favorite things about Paragon monsters is that yeah they have all this action economy and they can do all this stuff, but at least you're never gonna like I'm gonna cast this spell on you and he's just gonna I don't want to
Yeah.
you didn't or yes you did you lost your spell slot but it didn't do anything.
Going out the other end of it, for me, my big add, other than minor actions, my big add to the Giffy monster system was that Paragon defenses thing, where you take. I guess I'm doing it differently than he decided to finally do it in version 3 or whatever.
Hmm.
But like when they were fighting the Kraken, to give you
Yeah.
slight spoilers, they tried to banish it. And how I'm handling Paragon defenses is I have to make a decision as the monster. Do I want to make the save or not? I don't get to decide after the save.
Hmm.
Based on the spell that's being cast, would that monster risk it at all? And
Hmm.
if the answer is no, then you use a Paragon defense, and then the monster takes X amount of damage, based on the design of the monster. So the Kraken was like, no, I'm not getting fucking banished, and instead took 140 points of damage.
But that sounds great.
Right? Yeah. So the narrative is that Hypatia is banishing this creature to another realm, and it is literally tearing itself apart to resist her magic and stay in the prime material plane, and
Yeah,
that's
that's
why it took
awesome.
that damage. And so
That's awesome
she walks away. I pissed away a 5th level spell slot. No, I didn't. I did 140 damage to that son of a bitch
for a 5th level spell
for a
slot, which
5th
makes
level spell
sense.
slot. Yeah, exactly. So, and
I love that.
I'm tempted to make the damage scale based on the spell slot that was resisted.
That'd be pretty cool.
That seems pretty good. Or maybe base it on the DC of the. But I think the spell slot should actually play a part so that they feel like the resources invested are kind of paying off, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know, because otherwise, like you're just going to spam, like certain things. But Paragon monsters can recover pretty easily from stuff. So the only time that I would ever use a Paragon defense is against an instant fight ending thing.
Yeah, exactly.
A polymorph, a
The
banishment,
thing
a
the thing
force
the monster
gauge.
would use it for.
Right, exactly. Like, okay, you want to like use hypnotic pattern on the boss? Cool. What are you gonna do? Because the boss is gonna wake up pretty soon. So like, what are you gonna do? You know what I'm saying? Like,
Mhm.
yeah, all you did is buy yourself a little bit of time, and maybe that's what you needed. Maybe you needed
Yeah,
that to like regroup or whatever.
that's
Uh,
fine. And that's one of the things I like about. I guess with hitting on a pattern, there's no save. So, oh, there is.
There's
What
no
is it?
ongoing save,
There's
which
no
is the
ongoing
issue.
save. Yeah.
But then I do allow a Paragon defense to be used to end an effect going on a character, basically just for hypnotic pattern. But
What's
for the
that
most
other
part,
one? That dance?
I'll leave a monster. Otilic's dance that you don't even get a fucking save for initially.
Yeah.
So you fight Tarask, and the first thing you do is make him do the can. I don't know. And like heat metal, there's no saving throw for heat metal. You just automatically are doing damage.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but that in my opinion, if it's a Paragon boss, you need automatic damage because Paragon bosses have a lot of health. Yeah. So okay, sure. Yeah, he's got metal on him. You're doing heat metal. Oh, you don't have any metal. I shoot this metal arrow into him. Can I heat that arrow up? And it's like fine, but I'm gonna have him like on his turn as an item interaction pull the fucking arrow out.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. But like this is what makes the games that we're running, tooting some horns right now. This is what makes the games that we're running better than like Adventurers League, right? Because we have the freedom to make decisions in the rules that would result in a better story, a better combat, a better encounter, a better experience than having to stay strictly raw and essentially say, oh, well, I mean, you're abusing the rules, but the rules are the rules, so I guess you cheesed another encounter. That was fun. Yeah. So, But that brings me to the thing that I mentioned before we started the stream, where I learned a lot from from the Dungeons and Daddies podcast. Which a little background on Dungeons and Daddies. It's just a bunch of like internet personalities that did a podcast where they tried to play Dungeons and Dragons, and it was your classic like Town of Phandalin, Forgotten Realms, blah blah blah, and then very very quickly it got completely out of hand, out of control. There was a whole arc where they did Fortnite in Dungeons and Dragons, like just it got really goofy and really stupid, really silly, and none of them were very good at Dungeons and Dragons. The DM didn't know all the rules. Like it was just classic, like new people playing Dungeons and Dragons. It had a lot of the same emotions and feels that you would get from Adventure Zone, the first series of Adventure Zone.
Yeah.
My takeaway though was like, these guys are having a lot of fun. Like that was my thing. It's like they're having a lot of fun. Like the DM tries so hard to be like a hard ass, but like he loves these players and he wants these players to do cool shit. And he leans hard into every cool shit thing that they try to do. And I was like, I need to do that more. I have good players in my groups that are not abusive. Like they're not there to abuse rules. They're not there to cheese the game. They're there to have fun and to see cool shit happen. And as a DM, I needed to kind of start trusting my players more to be like, okay, you know what, we are going to do cool shit. Even if it's blatantly outside of the rules, we're going to start doing cool shit. And there was that transition during 2021 where I started allowing more and more and more of that into my games. And I don't really have regrets. Like I think it was beneficial for all of my games to start really allowing like more and more and more of that flexibility, where storytelling could kind of overtake the rules. And it was good for me because part of why I was burned out in 2020 was it was 2020, and also I was just running too many games. And again, like everybody had a sharpshooter. Everybody was just, every group was just the same group. Every group had a moon druid. Every group had a totem barbarian. People took barbarians so that they could soak hits better. Like, optimization, blah, blah, blah. And I just wanted to see something fresh. I wanted to see something new. Artificers, low-level artificer. Everyone that I've talked to kind of agreed that, like, one low-level artificer is equal to 5 other player characters of the same level. Sort of like one moon druid is equal to, like, an entire party all by itself. Yeah, and, like, these were things that I was like, I just want to ban everything. I want to like ban this. I don't want to ban that. I want to ban these feats. I don't want to ban this class. And I'm just tired of like dealing with all this stuff because everybody just uses this over and over and over again, like an instant win button. And there was like a big appeal to sort of like controlling the content that was available so that I could tailor the D&D experience that I was trying to deliver easier, right? I was trying to make my life easier. And I still feel that going into the 7th year of 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, with the amount of content bloat that we have, that every DM does need to do that. They need to figure out what they're comfortable with and what they're not comfortable with, and they need to kind of put that out front for their players. Like, these are the things in my game that we do or don't do, and that needs to be put, out front. Yeah, I don't know. With Giffy, I was very excited for a lot of it because I was like, this is hard. Like, these are hard things. We're going to punish ourselves for like having it so easy in 5th edition. Having spent over a year as a player dealing with those harder mechanics, I was like, this was hard. Like, I thought Rhyme was pretty damn challenging. I feel like it's a testament to our group that people maybe didn't realize how hard it was. But I'm here to tell you, having played D&D for a very long time, that your Rhyme campaign was very challenging. Yeah. Like, those mechanics, those Darker Dungeon mechanics, they delivered what they said they were going to deliver. Like,
and I think it worked really well for the setting.
Agreed. I would love Darker Dungeon mechanics in Curse of Strahd. If I ran Curse of Strahd, I would love to run a low magic Darker Dungeons Curse of Strahd because I feel like then it would actually be a little scary. Right? Like, then it would actually carry some serious weight to it. The problem with like Curse of Strahd is like, I'm listening to Dracula right now, like the audiobook for it, and I'm thinking like, damn, this must have blown people's minds for the time period. This is incredible. Like, when this book was written, oh my god, this must have been like the fucking Matrix for them. Like, this book is next level shit. But like, how do you deliver that same feeling of mystery and danger to a 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons group that has access to 7 years worth of content bloat? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, there's nothing scary about Strahd. There's nothing scary about Curse of Strahd if you've got all this stuff. Like, unless they're just role playing to be scared to be nice to you, right? But if you took that setting and you did Darker Dungeons, you added stress mechanics back into play. You really went hard on that with like some of these more difficult mechanics. Oh yeah.
If you want to do a horror campaign, make it so that death saves don't recover until you do a long rest, and make it so that you have to have a sanctuary to long rest. And honestly, that just helps if you're trying to do horror. That the safety, just being able to have a safe place anytime.
Yeah.
Like, I just want to, we're just gonna make a tent and fall asleep here, and then we'll be safe. Like, that kind of ruins just everything for a horror campaign.
Yeah, I hear stories about like, oh, well, we got a long rest right before we fought Strahd. How the fuck did you do that? Like, what DM would allow that? Without too many spoilers, Strahd is the final boss of Curse of Strahd. Yeah, like, why would you let that happen? What I don't understand. And then you turn around and you say, oh, Strahd was an easy fight. It's like, well, yeah, you went in with everything. When Curse of Strahd was written, they didn't have like Xanathar's classes, they didn't have Tasha's classes, they didn't have all these extra spells, they didn't have 7 years worth of homebrew that you and your group decided to add to the game. So yeah, I think in a campaign like that, those mechanics would be huge. That would make a huge difference in the campaign, for sure. Yeah. And that would even be a good setting, especially if you went low magic or a lot of penalties on magic. That would be a great setting for simple crafting. Like, how do we kill these monsters if we don't have magic? Like, you have to craft the weapons that can kill them. There's your
you got to find some silver.
Yeah, there's your Castlevania vibes, your Witcher vibes, just like that. So I think that Giffyglyph Darker Dungeons system is phenomenal for certain
Darker
aspects.
Dungeons.
And for a darker, grimmer, tougher campaign for sure.
Yeah.
All right, so last thing I want to talk about is Class Compendium. Neither of us had the courage to use Class Compendium for our campaigns.
But I did use it. I did use it for Monster Hunter.
You did use it for Monster Hunter, and we did use it for Paradise Vale.
Yeah.
I like Class Compendium a lot. I'm not gonna lie. I like Class Compendium a lot. My only complaint about Class Compendium is it was a very hard sell when there's 7 years worth of content that people want to try out.
Yeah.
And you're like, no, you get these 12 flavors. And they're like, but I want all that. And it's like, well, I don't want to convert it for you. So this is what you get.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, but for a mini series like Monster Hunter, fantastic. I thought it was fantastic. I really enjoyed just the flexibility and the excitement that those Class Compendium classes bring to the table. They're just more fun.
Yeah, you have so many options at a lower level where it matters. So like having all those options at a point where like all of them can be useful is so good.
Yeah. I will certainly be looking for opportunities to play Class Compendium. I think if I ever ran Hero Quest again, that needs to be Class Compendium. I think that would be great. Hero Quest series run as Class Compendium, that would be good stuff. Because they're already pre-con characters anyways. So you just say, you are a Giffyglyph thief. You are a Giffyglyph, wizrobe. You are a Giffyglyph this. And you just kind of keep it straight like that. Lex, the max level for Class Compendium goes up to 10. So, And honestly, by 10, you're getting everything. You get your capstone. You get your level 20 capstone at level 10. And most stories have been told by then, in my opinion. Like, look at Skull and Shackles. We didn't get to do our recap, but we were actually concerned about the recap that we weren't going to be able to remember everything. 130 sessions is a lot of sessions. Yeah. And we did a lot of shit. And we probably did more shit than we needed to do. And could we have kept going, like, forever? Like, One Piece style? Probably. But like, I mean, 16 levels over 160 episodes or 130 episodes. I mean, that's a lot of Dungeons and Dragons. We did a lot of stuff. I don't know if we needed to do all that stuff. I think there could have been a lot of other characters going on a lot of other adventures in the time that I spent running Skull and Shackles. And that's part of why with Mythic Odyssey will be the last big campaign I run for a very long time. So, kudos to whoever got into my Mythic Odyssey group, because that's the last big campaign I'm running.
Until Viking Odyssey comes out.
No, don't say that. I was so upset. I don't want to be like a jerk, but I was so upset that they got enough funding to make like post-campaign stuff, because I was kind of excited to run it, but I'm not going to run it to 20. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, you can always just say, I'm not running it to 20.
Right? Yeah. Like, I am excited. I'm beyond excited for Wild Beyond the Witchlight, because it's a good story. And the story happens, and then it's over. And I'm okay with that. Like, so, yeah.
I listened to the first episode of Dungeon Daddies not too long ago.
Yeah.
And now I'm looking at this Witchlight thing. I'm like,
okay.
Where this came from.
Yeah. So like, I thought about that actually today. I was talking to my friend about it, and because he's like, well, it's isekai or whatever, right? Like anime, like they're basically real world people they get put in a fantasy world. I'm like, sort of. And then I immediately was like, fuck, it's just Dungeons and Daddies. And then he's like, well, how are you gonna, how's cell phones gonna work and stuff like that? And I was like, well, I guess I got to figure that out too. How a cell phone's gonna work? And then I was like, kind of excited. It was even more excited because I was like, this is a lot of stuff that I've never tried before with D&D, and this is good. Yeah, and so this is gonna be really fun to have dialogue that's basically like full meta. Right? To have people be able to comfortably in character be like, this is just like Helm's Deep. and not have it be like bad role playing. It's like actually good role playing because they're all from the modern world. They know what Lord of the Rings is.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I think it's going to be a lot of fun. But I also don't think that it would be enjoyable or sustainable for a very long campaign.
Mm-hmm.
So like I think it'll be a very fun departure from what we normally do, and I think it'll be a lot of fun in general. But I also think
Yeah.
it's great that it's going to be a short story. Like this is what happens, and now it's over. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that sometimes that's good. Sometimes a nice short and sweet story is better than a story that goes on too long. Or I see this all the time on the Odyssey Discord. You have a long campaign and it just falls apart. And then
Yeah.
what? You live with that incompleteness for like the rest of your life. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
not to get super dramatic about it, but people are investing a lot of time and in some cases a lot of money into seeing this narrative go from start to finish. And the longer it is, the more opportunities there are for it to fall apart. So,
So there's this DM that's on YouTube that did a lot of stuff for Rhyme,
mm,
and he almost every single one of his campaigns he has a limit of 30 sessions.
mm,
No matter how long the thing is, he'll run it in 30 sessions
that's
at
really
most.
smart. That's really smart.
And so he did Rhyme in 30 sessions. He's done other stuff in 30 or less, and he just makes sure he just keeps everybody on the ball. And like,
Well, that's why I had to just set a final session date for Skull and Shackles because
yeah,
those kids, man, we would have been fucking One Piece, man. We would have been 1,000 episodes of Skull and Shackles. I mean, I just had to say, guys, I can't do it anymore. Like, we're done here. Like, so we're done. And I had to keep going back to prep, even though I had prepped the rest of the campaign. I had to keep going back to prep and cutting content because I was like, we can't have all this content because like I'm gonna end on time. I did the same thing with Red Hand of Doom, where we had players that were like, the holidays were coming up, and they were like, I'm not gonna make it. I got holidays, and pretty much it has to end like this week, or we're gonna have to like delay 4 or 5 weeks before we could do the finale. And I'm like, fuck all that. I went in before the session and I just deleted like most of the dungeon. And I was like, you go through the door and there's the end of the dungeon and that's it. Because I would rather be able to end the campaign well, with good pacing than to lose that because I didn't want to abandon like the content. Do you know what I'm saying? And so
yeah,
yeah, I think that's an amazing challenge to set for yourself. Like this campaign will be 30 sessions, period. And then you just have to, as the DM, kind of go in, and if they're fucking around, they're losing content, and you're just pulling content and you have to identify what is the absolute meat of the campaign and kind of keep them on
mm-hmm.
that path, or move that meat in front of them as they are meandering about to make sure that they
Yeah.
are hitting all the story beats as it goes. Yeah, that's really smart. So yeah,
He would let his players know like this is how many sessions this campaign is going to be. So this is how many sessions you guys have to complete your goal. So try and make sure you do it.
yeah, and that's definitely I don't know. It's definitely appealing to me because,
Mm-hmm.
for example, with Odyssey Prime, we're at like 94, 95 sessions or something, and there's a lot of game left.
Yeah.
A lot of game left.
I mean, you
And
guys did have like 2 years, like how many months of great games? So
well, yeah, and everybody enjoyed themselves, and
mm-hmm.
we've been enjoying the campaign and all that. And I let them kind of make decisions and push us in different directions. But I had been tempted to remove. There's a timer built into the campaign. I had been tempted to remove the timer because I didn't want them to feel pressured. But honestly, I had to add the timer back in because they didn't feel pressured.
Mm-hmm.
So we were going to end up with another Skull and Shackle situation where we're just
Mm-hmm.
sailing around in our fucking boat forever. So
I
yeah.
was gonna save this for when we did the rhyme thing, but there's supposed to be a timer in the last chapter of rhyme as well.
Ah, gotcha.
Yeah,
And I
but I didn't.
think I think I've been burned by timers a couple of times in the past, and that's what made me hesitant to do it. But if the timers are done well, they are important, I think, to
Yeah,
maintaining the pacing of the campaign. You can't have a timer hanging over somebody's head the entire campaign, but
yeah,
um, yeah. So anyways, back to Giffyglyph stuff. Class Compendium, I think it's great, but again, it's only great for certain things because to get it to, it's a hard sell when people have 7 years worth of content and you're like, well, this is all we have. But much like the Darker Dungeons content, there is a right time and a right place for it. And if you're willing to run it, it's good shit. That class compendium stuff is dynamite.
I think the one way you could, if you wanted to get class compendium into a regular game and not worry about, you know, just add the point system to the from the classes to whatever class you have, and you don't have to worry about making all the specific ones for every subclass. Let the subclasses be what they are for normal 5e, and just bring in the point system and the basic point abilities that you can use those points for, and call it a day. I think it'll be fine. Like, if you're a fighter and you have your repost thing, sure, go for it.
Well, yeah, I mean, Advanced 5e, they took Battle Master Fighter. That's all fighters now, and that's been a common fix, a common homebrew fix for a lot of groups.
They actually took that and gave it to every martial.
Yep, and then they also took Rogue Thief. That's every rogue. Every rogue has all of Rogue Thief now, and I mean these are smart decisions. I felt that 5e, Advanced 5e, made a lot of smart decisions. And they are decisions that if you want the flavor of class compendium, but you don't want to lose the variety that you already have, Advanced 5e is definitely, I think, the solution to that. If you like class compendium, but you don't like the limited amount of content for class compendium, Advanced 5e is probably your best bet. So, all right, man. Well, I'm glad we were able to get together and hash this stuff out, because I feel like we're both on the same page about the pros and cons of the Giffy system for sure.
I'm trying to think if there's any other homebrew stuff that we used that wasn't Giffyglyph that we just used this year.
Well, let me run through real quick our rules document, our 41-page rules document. Let me see. Let's see. We got boons, consequences succeed to costs. We already talked about. Valda's Spire. I mean, that's a dynamite book. Valda's Spire. Advanced 5e, LevelUp 5e. A lot of good stuff in there. Haven't been able to give that the attention that I wanted so far. Yeah. I have heard some complaints about it. At the end of the day, it's still 5e. So if you don't like 5e, like Advanced 5e, LevelUp 5e is not going to solve that problem.
For me, it looked like all they really did was gave a DC system. It's like a spell DC system to marshals.
To every class. Yeah,
to every class, and change instead of all the extra stuff you do besides attacking, like shove and all that stuff, make it be all homogenized into one DC.
Right. Which, I mean, it makes sense to just give everybody a DC, because one of the best parts about the Giffy monster system is the GG basics, right? Like the Giffyglyph basics. Like, oh, well, you're gonna climb on my Baroth's back. Well, it's gonna roll over and try to crush you with its body. Make a acrobatics check to avoid being crushed by it. The DC is your single target. The DC is this. Oh, there's 3 of you on the back. It's harder for it to focus on all 3 of you, so the DC is lower because it's affecting multiple targets. I mean, it's beautiful. It's simple. Yeah. It's beautiful. So yeah, I think every creature in D&D needs to have a go-to DC for shit that they do to you. And honestly, that would allow some freedom as well, where if a player's like, oh, I'm going to punch the dude in the throat, and you're like, okay. Yeah, you know what? Make an attack roll against the guy, and now he's going to make a Constitution save against your class DC. And then that will determine if you silence the guy or not, right? Because you punched him right in the throat. And then bam, we just invented a fucking mechanic on the spot, and the only difference is now we have a DC associated with your character.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think it's great. But I think you did just boil down their entire 1,200 pages of rules. You kind of just boiled it down into one thing. They gave everybody their own ability DC. So yeah. Character creation. This hasn't really been that big, but I did like how Tasha's handled character creation, where stats are no longer tied to race.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of that. I hated that before, because that's why you end up seeing the same shit over and over and over again, because
Mhm.
how do I walk away from +2 charisma? How do I walk away from that? You don't. You know what I'm saying? Like,
That's why everybody's a half elf.
yeah, everybody's a tiefling bard or a drow bard or a half elf bard because they want that charisma boost. They can't walk. They can't deny. They can't walk away from it. But now that it's no longer tied to it, you could finally have a Loxodon bard, which is obviously the best. So yeah, like it's cool
Plays
like
his
that.
trunk.
Exactly. Let's see, backgrounds. We didn't really get to dig into advanced backgrounds, but homebrew wise, I was very excited about the backgrounds from Grim Hollow.
Mhm.
Honestly, all the work I did developing my own campaign setting, I'm probably just gonna run Grim Hollow. Like I'll run my campaign setting that I
Hey,
made.
yeah,
Yeah, but
you
I'll
did a lot
just
more than just mechanics. There was a lot of world building there.
yeah. Like the world that was built on stream is the world that I will run, but I will
Mhm.
just use the Grim Hollow system because everything that we tried to do, they kind of already were doing it. So
Yeah,
yeah. I wish I had had time to finish the Bloodlines project because the Bloodlines project I think had a lot of promise, but it was just too much work on top of everything else that I was already doing. I feel
hmm
like the Bloodlines project could be its own stream series in and of itself, of just kind of digging into the different races and trying to develop that and play test that out. But I think the Bloodline
yeah,
system that we developed was definitely something that was headed in the right direction. So advanced backgrounds is cool, but just like crafting system, only use it if you're willing to put in the work to support it.
yeah.
Yeah. I like that we as a community unbanned some of our banned feats, but then nerfed them. And it was especially vindicating to see the latest book come out with level based feats. The Strixhaven book had
Yeah.
level gated feats, and
Yeah,
we had
one level first time.
and we had already level gated stuff, and Advanced 5e had level gated stuff. And so then you see WotC officially level gate a feat. It lends a lot of validity to that decision. Not that I didn't think that it was a great decision in the first place, but you know. So now going through and saying, sure, you want to be a sharpshooter, you could be a sharpshooter, but you got to at least be level 4 before you bust that broken ass shit out in the game. And then we even went in and nerfed them in addition to having a level restriction. I have heard some people add basically the mechanics of sharpshooter and great weapon master. Just all marshals have access to that. You take a -5 to your attack, you get a +10 to damage, period. That's just an ability that marshals have. You don't need a feat
No,
for it.
I mean, okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then boosting feats. I saw a lot of these feats in play that I never got to see, so I'm glad that we boosted a lot of these feats. I got 2
Yeah.
Mage Slayers now. 2 Mage Slayers.
Mhm.
Simply because we gave Mage Slayer magic resistance. If you're gonna give it to the fucking like satyrs and Yuanti, you might as well let people buy it with a feat. That's
Yeah.
how I feel about it. It's completely, I don't want to say racist, but it's inequitable to have races that can have magic resistance and then have no other way to get it than by choosing those races. So I think that it was a great fix, both for equity and just to make Mage Slayer not the one of the worst feats in the game.
You got a keen mind person too.
Yeah. Keen Mind. I have Keen Mind in 2 games, and both of them have enjoyed the benefits that came from Keen Mind being increased. I haven't seen anybody take Linguist yet, but I feel like we did add enough to make Linguist worth it. Poisoner is a hard sell, even with all the buffs that we gave it. Uh,
I was thinking
yeah,
about getting it on Maya at some point because I have a natural way of getting people to get poisoned.
right.
But
True.
I don't know.
Um, I'm trying to move away from everything having immunity to poison because I think that why have a poison type at all? You know what I'm saying? It's like
Mhm.
green dragons. Like why even have green dragons? Because at higher level, everybody has heroic feast every day for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, so they're all immune to poison. So what's the point of a green dragon anymore? You know, like it's stuff like that. Prodigy no longer being tied to race was huge. I have seen people take and enjoy that. Nobody's tried out Weapon Master yet, but you know, it is that. I'm very excited to see what happens with Valda's this year, in 2022, because Valda's
Yeah.
got some good shit. Extra Life was the teaser, but I'm waiting to see this shit in action because
You might
I
see it in Wishlight.
I was very excited by that book. I was very excited. That book took me by surprise hardcore. Like, I had no idea I was going to enjoy that book as much as I did. Nerfing spells. I was very happy with the decision to get rid of conjure spells. I felt like it was an absolute abuse of the action economy. Animate objects and conjure, they're not fun. They're not. It's not fun.
You got to get a clank in your game. Where they decided they actually used two large ones instead of a.
Well, Casey's an amazing player. Casey's absolutely amazing player. Yeah. One of my biggest regrets is that I didn't have room for a 6-player in Mythic because I really wanted to only run 5 players. Because Casey would have been that 6th player in Mythic, but now Casey's running his own game of Odyssey and all that jazz. But yeah. He's a fantastic player. I like the summon monsters that you guys get. I feel like the concentration to keep them kind of blows because I don't really think they're that strong that you should be losing them on a concentration.
I mean, if you use a 4th level spell slot on them, they do like
Selena's Rust dude, right?
Yeah, Rust dude. Like if he at 4th level where he can attack twice and then his poison aura that paralyzes people.
Yeah,
it's really good.
I think it just comes down to like Mythic has just terrible rolls all around because I
always lose concentration.
Yeah, like you and Sivo, you summon those dudes. I never get to see them do anything because you take 1 point of damage and then you fail your concentration check and it's gone.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean they're not even like beefy hits. It's just bad rolls.
Yep.
Weapons. I mean I don't want them to have durability, so that's my takeaway. Next year I'm just making firearms a part of the game. You want to use a gun? We're going to use Valda's rules for firearms. It's just World of Warcraft. It's just a longbow, but it's a gun.
How do you feel about potions this year?
I think potion toxicity is good.
Mm-hmm.
But we are changing it that potions made by alchemist artificers, blood hunters, and Valda Spire alchemists ignore potion toxicity rules.
Yeah.
And that was brought about by Anna Laura in Skull and Shackles being like, why would I bother making potions then if like they're gonna poison people? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking this came to me like the day I got COVID, I couldn't go to sleep. So I was just thinking about it the entire night.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about potion toxicity, and I was like, what if maybe you can drink as number of potions equal to your Constitution modifier before you get toxic.
Ooh, that'd be pretty good. That'd be pretty good, actually. You drink a number of potions per long rest equal to your Constitution modifier. Let's add that right now. All right, let's see. Drinking more than 1 potion. Okay. You can consume a number of potions per long rest equal to your con modifier. Any potions consumed past that number incur potion toxicity. So that's good.
You can drink your Constitution modifier +1, and then you'll be toxified. And then once you drink 1 after that, then you have to roll.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah. And it also like Constitution gets shit on all the time. Like it doesn't it doesn't have anything good because like the drowning rules for 5e are bullshit. Nobody ever worries about environmental hazards.
It's concentration.
Yeah.
But like the people who take Constitution, like barbarians,
they're
always up front getting hit. They're the ones who are gonna be drinking the potions the most too.
Yeah, exactly. That's really good. Or spellcasters that want to drink them mana potions to get back their spell slots and stuff. Because I'm planning to keep mana potions, honestly, from Giffyglyph. I thought they were pretty good. We didn't really talk about the Giffy potions, but
all the potions from Giffyglyphs were fine. I think the mana ones, the exhaustion one, like and now with this, when you can drink more than one and not have to worry about getting toxified every time you drink a exhaustion potion, it might be worth it.
Yeah. Oh no, I mean, it was a love-hate relationship for me playing Hellbore because I really wanted to make a character that wasn't a spellcaster because I didn't want to fuck your game up too bad. I mean, I think I probably did anyways, but I didn't want to fuck it up too bad by being a spellcaster. And I wanted to like explore as many of the mechanics as I could without being a spellcaster. So that's why I went hard on like crafting and all that kind of stuff, because I wanted to do that. But like
Mhm.
the setting was very resource scarce. And then
Yeah.
when it finally wasn't resource scarce, it was time scarce. So we didn't really have the time to use the resources. And then finally made that flask, but then it was like kind of risky. Like, is getting a small amount of HP worth a point of exhaustion? That's what we were always
Yep.
afraid of. We're always afraid of that
Yeah.
exhaustion.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but I do like all the other things around the potion rules that we're using, the potion toxicity.
Yeah.
I love the action economy. Potions as a
Mhm.
bonus action is fantastic. Double barrel potions in a single round, fantastic. I also like that it finally creates value for these very expensive higher level potions.
Yeah.
Because of course I want to drink a higher level potion because I want to get the most fucking healing I can, and not have to get potion toxicity. Like,
Yep.
we couldn't just like shotgun basic bitch
The,
healing potions over and over again
the,
because
the only
yeah,
the only downside about this is that it takes away all the other non that potions that aren't that useful. Like, I want to drink a potion of heroism, or I want to drink a potion of like you know the one that shrinks you down because I want to go inside this place. Like,
right.
then I'm stuck with toxicity for a whole until I get a long rest.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I mean, if you don't have a potion heavy campaign, it works really well. But
Yeah, if you have a party that doesn't have a lot of healers, the number one fix for that is to quote unquote give them more potions. But if you're playing
yeah,
with this rule, it makes it pretty rough. Yeah.
yeah. That's why you guys end up going for that healer feat. That healer feat was very,
That healer
very
feat
good.
was clutch. Oh my
Mhm.
god, that was some good shit. Um,
Okay.
yeah,
But post toxicity is good, and I like this new change. And
yeah.
I think I would probably use it always at all
I
times.
I like the Giffyglyph death and dying. I like the death status that you're still conscious enough to interact with your companions, because it sucks already to be
Yeah,
down. So at least knowing what's going on around you and being able to like choke out two words, like I feel
yeah.
like that's better than just
I
being
mean,
out of play.
honestly, people kind of did it already all the time.
Oh
Like,
yeah, yeah.
so this is nice. It's good.
I liked Death Lingering, which we talked about.
Mhm.
I liked the resurrection thing. I had already kind of been doing that with my Odyssey campaign because you literally are interfacing with the god of death.
Mhm.
So there's already like we're already operating well outside of the rules as written for Raise Dead and Revivify and all that kind of shit.
Yeah.
This is definitely something that is campaign specific though.
Yeah.
Like how revolving door do you want death to be in your campaign is pretty much what
Yeah.
these come down to. I would
Yeah.
honestly recommend for most groups that if you want to be blasé about death and dying, just give everybody a fucking fate point and just have bosses drop fate points. It's a much better mechanic than like, I'm dead, I brought you back from the grave. I'm dead again, I brought you back from the grave. Like, fate point at least forces you to like narratively come up with some reasons why they didn't die, other
Yeah.
than we just cheese life and death. Like,
Mhm.
it just becomes like life and death has no fucking meaning.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which could be funny and cool if that's the setting you're running. Like Skull and Shackles, it became a joke. Like dying became a joke. Like, oh,
Yeah.
well, we're just going to reincarnate you. And like,
Mhm.
they kind of just
We'll see what we'll roll the dice. See what you come back next time.
yeah. Like it just became like a meme essentially. But if you're trying to run like a serious campaign where life and death matters and stuff like that, definitely adopt fate points over revolving door resurrections. That's my
Yeah.
take on it.
I'll ask you a question.
Mm.
Because per Giffy, you're supposed to be able to hold up to 3 fate points. How,
Ooh.
how do you feel about that?
I mean, Giffy talks a tough game, right? Like
Mhm.
he's gonna really kill the shit out of you. I think if you are gonna run a game like that, then yeah,
Yeah.
sure. Like increase the amount of. Oh, that's another homebrew rule. Increasing inspiration from 1 to 3. I think that's fantastic.
Yeah. You use it a lot more.
Nobody was ever using inspiration, and then I increased it to 3. People just burn that shit constantly,
Yeah.
constantly, and it just makes for better plays because people
Yeah.
feel more confident doing things because they have that inspiration to
Yeah.
back it up, and I feel more comfortable handing it out because I know that people are always going to be using it, and so it just
Mhm.
creates a better experience all around.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, good point on fate points. You could have up to 3 as written. And certainly if you're willing to provide that many fate points in your campaign, I mean, why not let them have it? I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. But fate points to me is a much better narrative way of having unkillable characters than cheesing death.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I hate campaigns like Skull and Shackles where we were just like, "Oh, I'm dead. No worries." Or like, "Oh no, I lost my eye in this injury." They're like, "Don't worry, we'll kill you and then we'll bring you back. And when we bring you back, you'll have your eyes again." And it's just like, "Oh my god." You know what I'm saying?
Agreed.
It's so Dungeons and Dragons. It's so Dungeons and Dragons, but it's also so stupid. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. I also like Wildermyth's way of handling fate points because Wildermyth
Yeah.
basically has fate points. Every
Yeah.
character in Wildermyth has one fate point, and then I think secretly you can earn more fate points, but you don't know if you did or not.
Yeah.
Because eventually it's like you die and you're dead.
Mm.
But I love that there's always consequences.
Like there's always
Like,
like three choices. All of them are pretty bad, but
yeah,
at least you don't die.
I think that's fantastic. I think that deserves a bit more work.
Maybe that.
Honestly, yeah.
I think if you're able, if you like hand out fate points like that, like
Mm.
have them a bunch, like maybe they should have a consequence because the problem with fate points not having any consequences is that like then people can be like, oh, I got a fate point, man. I
Well,
might as well just do.
I thought it was cool when I used my fate point. I was killed by Ariel, cold damage, like the whole
Mhm.
deal, and you were just like you lose your son's boon or whatever, and like that shit hurt. Like I was sad. I was very upset, like because everyone else got 10 temp HP after every rest and or at every dawn or whatever, and I
Mhm.
didn't, and I felt that shit because it was a hard
Yeah.
campaign. And
Yeah.
I was like, but you know what? You fucking died, dude. Like you get to keep playing your character. Like get over it. You know what I'm saying? And like if I had died to that flock of crows that was trying to pluck out my eyes, it would have been completely reasonable, in my opinion, to have lost one of my eyes when I lost the fate point. Like I feel like every time you use a fate point to cheat death, that is an opportunity for something crazy to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, what's up, Endless Prism? Um, yeah, so I like that. Camping rules. I think camping rules were good at lower levels. I think camping rules get a little tedious after a while.
Yeah.
I think camping rules once in a while at higher levels is fun. But ultimately, it's whatever. I think the campfire rules that we started using from Abyssal Dice, right? Abyssal Brew. I think those were good. The travel rules or whatever, their
Mm.
campfire system. I thought those were pretty good. Downtime. I'll be honest. Paradiseville kind of killed downtime for me.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, like I think I'm just gonna be lazy. I'm just gonna run downtime as written in Xanthars, and if everybody just wants to be a fighter, that's fine. I don't care. Like, it's just so much. Like the downside, it's not a bad system. It's not a very well balanced system. That's for damn
Yeah.
sure. But it's not a bad system.
I mean, I guess the one way you can do that is say maybe just limit the amount of gold you can get per level.
Yeah, I
Like,
liked I liked Giffy's lifestyle quality actually mechanically impacting play. I thought that
yeah.
was really good. I'm definitely
Yeah.
gonna just keep that for
Yeah.
sure. Because yeah, if I'm staying at the goddamn palace, you damn right I'm gonna be feeling much better than if I was staying at like a shitty inn. Like,
Mhm.
yeah, that's just real life, you know.
Yep.
I like blind rolls.
Yep.
In my IRL game that I'm gonna start soon, I plan to use blind rolls. I think blind rolls are important.
Mhm.
I liked giving handle animals a bit more attention. I think that's been good. I think we could still do more to make handle animals a useful skill. I'm excited about all this new shit for medicine. I was already doing almost all of this shit anyways for medicine, but now that it's down here in the document, it's kind of official. So you can use it for surgery, diagnostics, autopsies, and also this new one, you can use it on an adjacent ally. If successful, they gain advantage on the next saving throw to remove an ongoing spell or effect. Because normally you can't use a help action on a saving throw. You can only
Mhm.
use a help action on a skill check or an attack roll. So this
Mhm.
is an opportunity to sort of have a help action for saving throws mechanically, and it rewards medicine, which is honestly rules as written a completely useless skill. So I like adding all this stuff to medicine to make medicine a more important thing. Also, here I have trained skill for medicine. You make a DC 15 medicine check when drinking or administering a healing potion, and if successful, you gain the maximum amount of healing from the potion. I almost wonder if we could have a skill mechanic that would prevent or reduce the effects of potion toxicity.
I mean,
That'd be kind of cool.
If a person who's trained in medicine, I don't know, maybe if you're trained in medicine, maybe if you roll,
You roll
maybe
twice. You roll twice for potion toxicity and choose the result.
I mean that could work.
Yeah.
Or I mean, you can make it a medicine check, and if they succeed, I guess the DC you could do the same thing that we do for DCs for levels,
Mm-hmm.
which is the 10 plus your proficiency bonus thing.
Yeah.
And if you pass it, maybe you don't get a.
You don't have to roll. You don't even have to roll for potion toxicity. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that just shows that this person is better trained at administering potions. Oh.
And that's a way you could have somebody be like a medic without being a what you call it, a healer, a spellcaster. They can go around feeding people potions. No, right. Maybe they actually have a syringe or something. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I dig that. I dig that. I like knowledge checks as bonus actions to learn more about creatures. There are a lot of classes that don't have anything to do with their bonus action economy that do have access to knowledge skills. Yeah, aka wizards. So this is great for them. I like the party check. I think party check is pretty good because I don't need fucking 5 people making a check. Of course, if 5 people make a check, one person's going to succeed. So I like party check over allowing everyone to make checks. Social interactions that use more than just charisma, I think that's important. I'm definitely using it for Wild Beyond the Witchlight because it's a social encounter campaign, and I don't want everyone to feel like they had to make a charisma character to succeed. So yeah. Let's see. Open skills, where you could World of Darkness bullshit one ability score into a skill. Yeah, that's amazing because it encourages player creativity. Yep. A lot of people are like, "Oh, it's just more of Terry trying to like get bonuses where there aren't any." It's like, no, it's being creative. That's the game, is being creative. So if you are like, I want to knock down this door, and I'm like, give me an intelligence check, or sorry, give me an athletics check, and they're like, well, my character's an artificer. Could I use intelligence to know the exact right spot to shoulder bash the door to open it? It's like, oh, fuck yeah, that's really good. Okay, yeah, give me an intelligence athletics check to open this door. Like,
why not?
Why not, right? That's really cool. Not? That's cool shit. So like, yeah, open skills, awesome. Tool synergy, it's a thing. I always forget it, but it's there. That's all I have to say about that. If the player is smart enough to remember that tool synergy is a thing and they remind me, they could have their +2 bonus, but like, yeah, I totally forget it exists. We didn't really get to play with curses this year. I had a lot of curses planned for Paradise Vale. But it really didn't come into play, and all my Odyssey players are too smart to get cursed, so I haven't got to play with boosted curses yet.
There was a couple curses in Rime. You guys avoided most of them, and one of them, the big one at the end, only 2 people got affected by it, and then one person, like it was mechanically in the adventure how it's supposed to work, and they did fine. So I didn't really have to do much with the curses either. We did have one disease though.
That's true, and we sure did. It killed Grandma. Yeah. Dazed. I'm liking Dazed. I've had players kind of grousing about this. They're like, it's like being slowed, but it's shittier. I hate it. It's like, would you rather be stunned? Well, no. And it's like, okay then. I think Dazed for stun is a smart move. That's just my take on it. I think that Dazed for stun is a smart move. If you still want to have stun, have it be if you fail by 5 or more, you are stunned. Otherwise, you're dazed. I think the 5 or more thing, the 5 or more window needs to come into play a lot, especially if we're allowing succeed at a cost. Because
would you allow somebody to succeed at a cost and not?
Oh yeah, I definitely would. If there was If there was a
Like even if they
secondary
don't.
effect, yeah, if there was a
Mhm.
secondary effect that said if you fail by 5 or more, I would allow you to succeed at a cost to avoid failing by 5 or more.
Okay.
I would definitely do that. Yeah.
Mhm.
Because 5 or more is, I think it's a great system because there are already examples of it in the game.
It is.
Yeah, Medusa instantly turns you to stone if you fail by 5 or more. So like, we could just introduce that for stuff. Like, okay, you miss stunning, cool. So we'll add stunning back in on certain, certain monsters, certain effects. Oh no, my game just like is flashing all my personal data here. No, 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 no. Um,
No.
so yeah, I like Dazed. I think Dazed is really a really good addition to the game. Deadlier diseases, like you said, we only had one real bad disease situation, and it was pretty bad. It was bad enough that a paladin wasn't able to just cheese it away, which I
Mhm.
actually, as sad as the death of Grandma made me, I was actually very happy that you stuck to your guns on that one and went with a deadlier disease that couldn't be cured by a fucking first level paladin. God, I hate that shit so much. God, I hate paladins so much. Anyways, inspiration we already talked about. Lingering effects. It's a gameplay thing that exists, but we finally quantify it in a very easy way. If you have a lingering effect, you make a saving throw at the end of your round of your turn. The end. Lucky as a status is good. Lucky as a feat is still banned. Marked is good. Restrained. I wanted to add to restrained that casters must succeed a concentration check with a DC equal to the escape DC for restraining effects. Else they cannot cast spells requiring the semantic component. Now, I don't know how often people are going to remember that. I know that every spellcaster that read that got really mad at me and privately
Mhm.
messaged me that I was a fucking monster. But I kind of want to try it out. I didn't enforce it at all last year, but I would kind of like to do it. The arguments will be, well, why does McFighter get to swing his greatsword if I can't even wiggle my fingers to cast a spell? Right?
Mhm.
Yeah, so that's tough. But like spellcasters just have it so much better than everyone else. They got the fucking shield spell. How did you even get picked up in the first place? You have the shield spell. How did you even get caught? Like,
It was a dexterity save instead. That's why.
how about this? How about you how about you misty step out of it, you son of a bitch? You know what I'm saying? Like, stop complaining. Like, fucking spellcasters. All right. Anyways, man, that might have been some hellebore there. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Sickened. Sickened is something I want to add next year. It's basically mechanically the same as poisoned, but can affect creatures that are immune to being poisoned. Case in point, troglodytes smell bad. Okay, well, how does being immune to poison make you immune to something smelling bad? Do you know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Like, that doesn't
Yeah.
make any fucking sense. Maybe you got hit so hard that you have a poisoned effect. Well, I'm immune to poison. I guess I can't have that sass effect. So I just feel like sickened is a great alternative to poisoned because you still get that benefit of, well, not the benefit, you still get the penalty of disadvantage to all these checks and everything, but it's not poisoned.
Mhm.
So I'm kind of looking at sickened. Unlucky is good. Well rested. I definitely want well rested to live. I don't consider well rested a Giffy thing. I consider it a Dom thing. And
Yeah.
yeah,
So the reason why it came up there is because I was thinking of Monster Hunter,
yeah.
and
I
like,
think it's fantastic,
yep.
and it's part of my sell to groups that have not used Succeed at a Cost is that we are going to be using well rested, which gives you protection against one level of exhaustion. Basically, if you got a good night's rest, you're going to be able
So
to, yeah,
again, that same night where I was just thinking about D&D stuff because I couldn't go to
yeah,
sleep, I was thinking about well rested, and then the whole like having exhaustion and then not being able to take care of it until you do like
yeah,
because long rest requires sanctuary, and when we had during rhyme, there's sometimes when someone had exhaustion, you guys were nowhere near sanctuary and just had to deal with it for so long. But like you camp, got a good night's sleep, passed your check, but you still woke up exhausted.
mm.
So I was thinking like I don't know, maybe it makes sense that if you get a good night's sleep, you can forego that hit die and just
Oh,
remove
you can cash in hit dice to remove exhaustion. Ooh, I like that. Hold on. When recovering hit dice, you can exchange a hit die to remove a point of exhaustion. Oh, that's real nice. That's a good idea because they're basically an interchangeable currency anyways. Because if something taxes your hit dice and you don't have it, you get exhaustion.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a really good idea.
Yeah.
All right, so then we talked about active initiative. I like maximum damage critical hits. I ain't gonna lie. Like the Storm King's Thunder adventures with their maximum critical hits, they were bananas. That shit was bananas. And it felt like they were fighting giants. Like it felt like like there was big stakes on those critical hits.
There was moments in Ryan where you guys crit and like it was very, especially for Zafu. Oh my goodness,
It was so stupid. Like
so many times.
5th edition critical hits are dumb. And like no amount of boons can ever be not trying to be mean here, but no amount of boons could be as good as maximum critical hit damage.
Yeah.
Maximum critical hit damage is good shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it hurts. As a DM, oh man, I DM Django, okay? Like, I DM Django. That dude was dropping critical hits every fight, every other round. One of the luckiest rollers I've ever seen. Yeah.
Final shot.
Oh my god, yeah. And like, he's a rogue. So we're talking about 36 extra damage immediately because you maximize all the critical hit dice. Yeah. Yeah. So I recommend max damage critical hits. I think the max damage critical hits are fucking awesome. I never really got excited for critical hits. Even as well, I guess as Hellbore I did because I got the half orc damage and I got the rogue damage on the critical hits.
Rogue, even without max critical hits, being a rogue and critting is still great. But if you had max critical hits, being a rogue, even better.
Oh yeah, like I don't think Django's ever gonna have an experience like that again. You know what I'm saying? Being a rogue, having a character that lucky, landing crits like every fucking session, just dropping that huge damage. Oh man, yeah. I told him, I was like, man, I played 53 sessions. I got 3 critical hits. You got 3 critical hits in the last 5 minutes. You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy.
I'm thinking, like after playing through Rhyme and seeing, like, there was so many critical, like, I mean, there was, but I think the problem is that, like, when you don't have it and you finally do get a critical hit that is big, it is great. But, like, that doesn't happen enough.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's just more fun. And also, if you're using Giffy monsters, they have so much health.
Yeah, they do.
So much health. You need everything you can to take that health away. Everything you can.
I'm also kind of worried though, because like if with maximum critical hits, when I crit, it's pretty bad too. Like a monster.
Yeah. No, it is. It is, but it's also, you know, it's also part of the game. That's why there's a there's a threshold for instant killing, and the threshold's still pretty high.
Yeah.
Also, fate points.
That's true.
Yeah.
They got a fate point. I don't got to worry.
Yeah, exactly. So grappling improvements. We haven't gotten a chance to test this out. We've both, in our own way, been doing this system already, and so this is just you and I kind of merging our 2 different ways of handling grappling into one system, so that we can kind of see how it goes. So I'm excited to try that out. Intelligence for initiative, only a few people benefit from this, but it's cool. I think utility and movement is good, especially since it's automatically tracked by the system. You can't stress about it. If players aren't following it, who really fucking cares? If the DM isn't following it, who cares? Come on, guys. Like, it's just there. It's cool, but it's like, it's not the end of the world if not every movement is perfectly calculated. I know that Pathfinder kids are going to come after me in my sleep for saying that, but it's just how it is. It doesn't really matter. This I'm very excited for. Catch-up mechanic.
Yeah.
Oh, so many times people have missed out on really cool shit. Fuck. I can't believe it took me this long to come up with this mechanic, but like, I love it. I mean, I've only had it a couple of times here at the end, like in the Storm King's Thunder and Skull and Shackles, but man, it makes a difference. Like, my players of Skull and Shackles were like, thank you. It would have taken me 3 rounds to catch up with the party. I will gladly give up a round for this. 2-weapon fighting improvements are new. So
I will say for that catch-up mechanic, though, is that in some cases it may not make any sense, because like in the last part of Rhyme, when you guys were in the tower, 2 people were downstairs, you know, talking to like thing, and then you guys were like, if one turn passed and they were already up there, that wouldn't really make any sense.
Like all things, use common sense. And it could definitely be exploited, because you could technically put yourself adjacent to any allies. You could just advantageously I'm not saying that you could use it to teleport yourself out of danger, right? Like, oh, I'm swallowed by the monster. I really like. I'd like to catch up with the party. Is that okay?
Mhm.
I'm just gonna crawl out this anus real quick and just.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna move adjacent to the person farthest away from the monster. It's the rules, right? It's a catch-up mechanic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Two-weapon fighting. We're gonna try to work on that next year. Try to make that
Yeah.
better.
I kind of want to make a two up because I've always like class fantasy wise, like
Mhm.
I always like dual wielders, stuff like that, but I never was able to make one that was fun in 5e.
Yeah.
So with this, I kind of want to definitely try and make a character that uses two weapons
Yeah.
to see how it is.
Yeah, no, I'm excited again with all the stuff next year because of Valda's and then the additional things we're going to try to fix with our house rules. Wounds and injuries we already talked about. Race and species change. I like how we're handling stats now. I think that's how it
Yeah.
needs to be done. I
Mhm.
love heritage and culture, but sort of like class compendium, it feels very limited still. But I would love players to take advantage of heritage and culture if they want. Like, I would definitely allow heritage and culture. Like, I love the idea that dwarf is a culture and not a race. I think stuff like that's amazing. I think it's long overdue, especially if you want a more modern fantasy game where it's not like the dark ages of fantasy where dwarves hate elves because elves are elves and elves hate
Yeah.
dwarves because dwarves are dwarves and
Yeah.
like there was so much racism in like early D&D. Like literally the rangers powers were powered by racism.
Hmm.
Like, yeah, like, so I'm very happy to see heritage and culture from a5e. I think that's going to be huge.
Yeah.
I really hope that gets expanded. I hope they make an entire supplement just full of heritage and culture. I think that's going to be amazing. And if
Hmm.
things slow down for me, it'd be fun to go in and start developing some of that myself. Don't really need it because all my stuff is already in existence. But God, it'd be so cool to take some time to do something like that for Thylea. Where you have a set number of like races and cultures. It's
Yeah.
perfect. It's a perfect system. Like
Yep.
you're a centaur, but you're also from Auresia, so you have centaur heritage, but Auresian culture.
Yep.
Yeah, it's perfect.
Yep.
Um, let's see. I'm happy that Dragonborn got fixed finally. I no longer allow variant humans. That doesn't seem to have impacted anybody. Um, and then class changes coming up on the next year. Again, excited to see all these new changes from a5e. Excited to see Valda's classes in action. Pet classes. I finally have a comment about pet classes. Pet classes are awesome, but they're also very rude. If you're in a big group, like it's just rude. It's rude to show up with a pet class if you know there's going to be 5 other players. That's
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's just how it is. Like you have so much more action economy than everyone else. It's just not fair. It's not equitable to other people at the table. Um, let's see. We didn't get to see Berserker Frenzy fixed because still nobody wants to play Berserker. I am excited about nerfing Moon Druids finally. I don't want to see any Moon Druids for a long time. So at least all of 2022, hopefully we don't have any Moon Druids. Um, let's
I never really
see.
liked moon druids, like playing as them.
I felt that the smite improvements were they were just a pain in the ass. I kind of just want to drop them and go back to like using spell slots for smite. I do like seeing paladins actually cast spells
Hmm.
because they're not afraid of like not having spell slots for smiting. So maybe just something like you can smite a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus or something.
So right now it's you can smite a number of times equal to your charisma score, and then
Mm,
the damage dice is based off your paladin level.
yeah,
Problem is that because at least in for Rhyme, every time Azafu leveled up, it kind of removed all the stuff that we set up for it. So like
yeah,
that's why it kept on happening. But if that didn't happen, I think it's fine.
yeah.
Um, and like the weird thing about it is like having to pick your smites out like
Mm,
beforehand, like during a long rest. I mean
yeah.
that's the weird part.
Yeah. I get what they're saying. They're trying to recreate praying for those smite spells or whatever, but I don't know. It's still I think it could definitely still use some work. So nobody played a ranger, so we didn't get to see any ranger improvements. Um let's see. Sorcerer, I was tempted to switch over to point-based Sorcerer, but I was too lazy because it just seemed like a lot on top of everything else that we're doing. I like the Warlocks having that ability that they can
Sacrifice.
sacrificial bargain. I think that's
Yep.
been huge.
Yep.
Haven't really seen any wizards, so it's whatever. We already talked about crafting. Harvesting, I've made changes to make harvesting even more simple and based on your Monster Hunter game, take less time. Because,
Yeah.
who cares? It needs to be realistic. It's fucking Dungeons and Dragons. There's nothing realistic about it.
I mean,
yeah.
Think about every single game you have where you harvest the monster. It is just like Red Dead. It's supposed to be realistic. This guy just cuts up the monster, skins it, and
yeah, realistic would be sitting there for 45 minutes while he skins a rabbit. You know what I'm saying?
It's
yeah.
Authentic, not realistic.
Right, exactly. And then nodes, and that's it. So yeah, I mean, that covers everything. All right.
I think we're good.
All right. Well, I have to go defeat some people at Magic the Gathering. Or get destroyed. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
My cat needs to get fed.
Okay, fair enough, man. Thank you so much for hanging out. It has been an absolute joy to have you in my life. I'm just so I honestly to have you as a player, to have you as a DM, to have you as a creative person to bounce ideas off of. I mean, it's just I'm really thankful for that. So thank you.
Yeah. I'm glad I joined and met this community because I always wanted to play D&D for the longest time.
Mm-hmm.
Longest time. I never had an opportunity to. So
yeah,
just running into this community and finding such a good group of people.
We got a good community here that we've built, and I'm excited to see where things go next year. So, all right. Well, have a good night, man, and thank you everybody in chat for hanging out.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, Happy New Year, everybody. And I guess we'll see you next time.